Okay, good evening everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and for everyone online, welcome. We're just going to start with the acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians, past, present, of this land of the Darug people, who long before us lived, loved and raised their children on this land. We also acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families in our community and acknowledge their deep physical and spiritual connection to their land. We'll just start off with a prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Loving God, we gather this evening as parents, carers and educators, united in the hope of guiding our children with wisdom and love. We thank you for the gift of our families and for the joy and responsibility of nurturing the young lives you have entrusted to us. Lord Jesus, who welcomed the little children and blessed them, help us to see our children as you see them, full of promise, worthy of patience and deserving of kindness. Grant us strength when parenting feels overwhelming, calm in the face of life's challenges, and hearts overflowing with gentleness and compassion. Holy Spirit, guide us with wisdom tonight as we listen and learn. Bless Dr. Justin Coulson and his words, that they may inspire us to create homes filled with peace, respect and love. We place our families under the care of Mary, Mother of the Church, asking her to intercede for us and to help us grow in strength, calm and kindness. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome everyone to our Term 3 meeting with Dr. Coulson. We've got a few new faces and hopefully a lot of new faces online. This is our first time live streaming, so we do welcome everyone and hope that, this might be the way forward. We do encourage people to come face to face because it gives that sense of community and, togetherness as a Parramatta diocese. The Parent Representative Council, for people that don't know, we represent all 81 schools in the Diocese of Parramatta, so that's primary and high school, and we are the voice for you parents. I'm a parent. This is not a paid position, this is a volunteered position, so we do this completely out of love to help educate our parents so that we can be the best versions of ourselves for our kids and give them everything. So thank you so much for coming and joining us, and I encourage you to follow our socials, see what meetings we're going to be having. We have one every term, usually on a Monday night, week 6. So that's our goal. Sometimes it changes, depends on the availability of the speakers, but bring a friend and come and join us so that we can grow and learn together. So I'm just going to hand over to Steve, who is the Family Liaison Officer from the Diocese of Parramatta.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Steve Batchelor, and I'm the Family Engagement Officer at CSPD Schools, and I also collaborate with the PRC, which is the Parents Representative Council, in case you thought it was the People's Republic of China, which it is not. Before we welcome Dr. Justin Coulson, I want to thank all of you for showing up. Attending a night like this, it might feel small, but it's powerful. And every time we as parents and carers are present at an event, a school activity, or everyday life, we're sending a clear message to our children that you matter, that your learning and your well-being matter, and this community matters. And our kids, they may not always say it, but they notice. And when they don't, even when they don't, the impact is real. Being here strengthens not only our families, but the whole community of families around us. So looking ahead, we're going to be inviting schools to nominate parent reps soon to help us bring schools and families closer together. So keep an eye out for term 1 next year. And if that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, we would love to have you to build our CSBD community. And now, it's my great pleasure to introduce someone who's been guiding voices for a long time for families across Australia. Dedicated to helping families thrive through his research-backed and hard-won wisdom, Dr. Justin Coulson is a leading voice in parenting in Australia. Justin is the co-host and parenting expert on Channel 9's Parental Guidance, and his Happy Families podcast, which he co-hosts with his wife Kylie, is the most downloaded parenting podcast in Australia. Justin is also the founder of happyfamilies.com.au and is the author of 9 books, with his 10th book on raising boys soon to be published. Justin is a sought-after public speaker, appears regularly in the media, and his viral content has racked up over 100 million views. Wow. Justin earned his psychology degree at the University of Queensland and his PhD in psychology from the University of Wollongong. He and his wife Kylie have been married since the late 1990s and are the parents of 6 daughters. 6. Oh my God. And are the grandparents of 1 granddaughter. You just can't get the guys, can you? No? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Justin Coulson.
I've got one here, yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Steve. I love the energy. 6 daughters. Do I look tired? We have such, and thank you, Sharon, as well. We have such an emotional home. It is just so emotional. Hello to everyone who's online. I'm going to do my best to remember that you guys are there, but for the most part, I'm going to be talking to these guys here and you can just listen in. Good news, they've allowed me some extra time tonight because we've started a little bit late, so we'll be going to 10:40. I'm so funny. Some of you are just like, I'm out, we're done. I'm supposed to go for an hour. But this presentation usually creates so much conversation that it never goes for an hour. It's usually closer to an hour and a half, okay? So that's the reality. Expect 90 minutes, and that way if I go 10 minutes over, we're not going to feel too bad about it because it's 40, but I've just told you that we're already doing an extra 30, so it's only an extra 10 and we'll be good. All right, resilience, developing strength and helping our kids. What is it with kids, right? Like, do you ever look at the kids and you're like, just have a go. Stop being such a wuss. Crack on. When I was your age, I used to walk to school barefoot through this much snow in Australia. And we look at the kids now and they're like, oh, but I had one of my kids the other day, she's like, I can't unpack the dishwasher. I'm like, you're 15. Why can't you? I don't know how. I'm like, really? You don't know how? Have I been that negligent in my parenting responsibility that I haven't taught you how? She's like, I can't. My mum raised me on a phrase that I have absolutely integrated into my home. Can't means don't want to. And I used to hate it when mum would say that because it'd be like, okay, I don't want to. And so I said to Lily, yeah, I get the sense that when you say you can't unpack the dishwasher, what you're really saying is you don't want to. And she's like, that's right, I don't want to. And I'm like, gotcha, sucker, let's do it, go. Anyway, 2 propositions underpin everything that we're going to discuss tonight. And I'm not being cheeky, I'm actually being legit about what these 2 propositions are, although they do come across a little bit smug and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they are legit. Proposition number 1, life is hard and then you die. I know, it's so funny when you hear people say it. It's like, is he for real? Did he have to do a PhD to figure that? But life is hard. It's meant to be hard. Is there anybody in the room, is there anybody online, who has literally just sort of felt like they've had the armchair business class ride through life to this point? And you just sort of sit back, recline, oh yeah, I'll have a sparkling water. Thanks, actually, no, make it a sparkling wine. I'm feeling a little bit luxurious today. Like, that's not real. And I know that everyone on Instagram pretends that it is, but it's not. And even the people who are on Instagram pretending that it is, they're paying huge amounts of money for other people to make it look easy. Or they're taking a shot from this angle, because if you get that angle, you can see the shopping centre car park behind them instead of the lovely tree that they've found. Right? Like, life is hard. It's meant to be hard. That's how you grow. If it's not hard, you don't grow. If you don't grow, you don't develop. You don't become more than you are. You feel like you're living a life with no meaning and purpose, and you end up with depression and misery. It's meant to be hard. Hard gives you direction, meaning, purpose, and all the other stuff. Second proposition. By our very nature, we are born, and your children are born, resilient. And so when I bump into people and they tell me that their child's got anxiety, or their child's got ADHD, or their child's got autism, or is autistic, you get the language right, or whatever it is, I keep on sort of going, well, hang on a sec. That doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that what we're doing is we're making it so that they don't have to. And if we make it so they don't have to, they're not going to grow, they're not going to learn, develop, they're not going to develop the competence that they need so that they can function. So we've got to talk about a whole lot of stuff around that. I'm not here to give you a tough love presentation tonight. Just go home, tell the kids to suck it up, princess. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight at all. But I do want to emphasize life's meant to be hard. And when you take hard... Have you ever caught yourself saying, I just don't want my kids to have to go through what I had to go through? Right? But hang on, didn't you become who you are because you went through what you went through? So you don't want them to have the growth, you don't want them to have the learning that comes from doing hard? But when our children experience hard, what's our instinct as parents? What's the most rewarding thing we can do as parents? When the kids are melting, they go, oh, it's too much. We want to rescue them. And when we rescue them, don't we feel like we're good parents? Oh, look at that, I alleviated my child's suffering. How good am I? And we give ourselves a pat on the back and everyone says, oh, you're such a good parent. Look at the way you come to the aid of your children. No. You've just stopped them from growing and learning. Now, if it's a developmentally inappropriate thing that they're up against, or if there's something that's genuinely dangerous, yes, go to their aid. If your 4-year-old is melting down because you've said clean up the bedroom and it hasn't been cleaned for 3 months, or potentially with a 4-year-old even 3 hours, let's be real. Sometimes that's not developmentally appropriate. And so we do get in and we work with them and we help them. But our job as parents is to not solve their problems. It's to support them through their problems. Heaps to talk about. Let's start. Definition. What is resilience? We're going to talk about it for the next hour and 37 minutes. What is it? What is it? Talk to each other. If you're on your own, I can see a few of you sort of sitting on your own. Make a friend. Say hello to the person who's near you. And introduce yourself and share some parent stats, like I've got this many kids and this is how old they are. And I'm going to give you 90 seconds to discuss what resilience is. Then I'm going to get your feedback. We'll play with some ideas and see if we can land on something that we can all feel good about moving forward. 90 seconds starts now. Okay, 15 seconds. Thanks, everyone. Wrap up the conversations in the next 15 or so. Okie dokie. I'll get everyone back to the front. And let's get some answers. For those of you who are online, I'll repeat the answers so that you can hear them because I'm the only one with the microphone. All right. Who wants to go first? What is resilience? When we're talking about it, go. Being strong. Being strong. Is everyone who's strong resilient? So I want to go deeper than that. I think that strength is part of resilience. They are related, okay? But they're not exactly the same thing. There's a correlation there, but I want to go deeper. Yep. Oh, sorry, go ahead, go again. Teaching your kids to be strong, okay, but again, being strong. So I'm just thinking, what does that mean to be strong? Bouncing back? Moving on? What were you going to say? Giving things a go? Okay, so first things first, is it okay to have a tantrum if you fail or you don't get your way? Does that mean that you're not resilient if you have a tantrum? Okay, because you're dealing with it, right? On the way here tonight, I stopped at George Street in Parramatta and bought some food, and that was a mistake because it cost me $140 for the parking. Yeah. And so I have had a little tantrum. In fact, I'm still having that little tantrum right now, let's be honest. This is a little bit therapeutic for me. I'm just letting it all out. So does that mean that I'm not strong because I'm having a bit of a tantrum? Does that make me a little bit weak? No. How do we move past the things that don't work out in our lives? That's what we're talking about with the resilience here. Yep. Okay, weathering a storm, like a parking fine. $140. That's a hell of a storm. Seriously. I need to sell every one of those books tonight, I'm telling you now. Man, I carried that suitcase for nothing tonight. That's what that's about. Weathering a storm, far out. I'm gonna complain. I actually turned the dial and I forgot to press the pay for parking. You know how on the app you turn the dial? I just forgot to press the pay button. No, I reckon, you know what, I can tell you I didn't because about 6 months ago in Melbourne, I got a parking fine using the same app because I forgot to update the license plate. I didn't. I complained to them and they let me off. So I'm going to try that again this time. I'm going to see if they'll let me off again. Except this time I didn't push the button and I didn't update the license plate. I think that the odds are starting to stack up against me. Anyway, this is not about me. This is about your kids. All right, so we've got this idea where we're trying to bounce. I hear bounce back all the time. I hear that all the time. Let's just spend a second on that. Think about the hardships that you've endured in your life. When you go through that hard thing, and I'm not talking about something as simple as a parking fine. I'm talking about the real hardships. An estrangement from a family member, a terrible health diagnosis, your child being ostracised or receiving a diagnosis, the loss of a parent or a loved one going through a divorce. If you've been through any of those things, did you bounce back? Is that the appropriate term for what you went through? Did you just go back to who you were before it happened? Learning. Ooh, I like this, sitting with the uncomfortable. So normally when we go through something hard, we don't go back to who we were. It changes us. We adapt, we learn to cope, we learn to move forward. Hardest thing that ever happened in my life, hardest thing, without question, and the most awful thing for me to talk about, was that 2 years ago in November, my nephew, aged 20, took his life. How do you bounce back from that? There's no bouncing. What you do is you learn to cope and then you learn to live your life and then you try to find meaning and then you look for purpose and you try to do something as a result. I'm still broken by it. It's crushing. Does that mean I'm not resilient? What about my sister, Logan's mum? She laid in bed and wept for, 6-9 months, something like that. Does that mean she's not resilient? So this idea of resilience, it's a tricky concept. Here's how we're going to talk about it tonight. Resilience is experiencing adaptive outcomes and avoiding maladaptive outcomes when adversity strikes. Because it will, because life is hard. So can I have that hard thing happen and learn from it, cope, adapt, be flexible? You know, palm trees have evolved so that when a cyclone comes, it'll push them all the way over so they're basically on the ground and then they come back up. but they actually need the wind to be stronger. In fact, some researchers developed this thing in the desert in America years ago called Biosphere 2. So you know what a biosphere is? We live in one. Like the biosphere is just the biological sphere that we're in. It's like the environment. But they created this environment called Biosphere 2 because one day we're all going to be living on Mars apparently, so they needed to figure out how are we going to grow stuff and how will we live in these circumstances. And they planted these trees, and the trees just, like Biosphere 2 is way bigger than this hall. It's massive, all glass and all that sort of stuff so the sun can get in. And they planted the trees, and the trees just went poof. They grew up way faster than normal trees, and they grew up way straighter than normal, just poof, like this. And the scientists are all like, oh, high five, we're better at nature than nature. Look at what we did in Biosphere 2, how awesome are we? And then out of nowhere, the trees just started going poof, like this, started falling over. And when the scientists went and investigated, they discovered two things. First of all, trees that grow in nature, they face adversity. And because they face adversity, they develop this thing called stress wood. Literally, the wind pushes them around and they develop strength in their wood to cope with the stress of the wind and the elements. And you know what else trees do? They push their roots down deep. Why? Because the wind's blowing them around and they need to hang on. But the trees in Biosphere 2, without the stress of the wind, they had shallow roots and they had no stress wood. And eventually they grew tall to the point where they could not support themselves. They didn't have the strength to do it. And I wonder if sometimes we're doing that to our kids. We're trying to protect them from the wind. Literally, a couple of years ago, I was down in the Illawarra. I was in Wollongong to give a talk like this. And the principal comes to me and says, "You're not going to believe it. Our parents really need you tonight." I'm like, "Yeah, why is that?" He said, "I've just had my third phone call today from parents wondering if the kids are going to be playing outside or not because it's so windy. And they want the kids to stay inside because they don't want them to get blown away." And I'm like, when you were a kid, where did you want to be on a windy day? Oh, wow, this is wild. This is so much fun, right? Stress wood. Stress wood. So the term resilience, it actually comes from engineering. It's not a psychological term. It comes from engineering. This is resilient, according to an engineer. Is there an engineer in the room? Tell me. Yes, I love it. What sort of an engineer are you? A chemical engineer. Okay. Might not be my guy tonight, but let's see how we go anyway. I'm going to pick on you. What's your name? Jason. Okay, Jason. I'm Justin. Nice to meet you. Jason, as a chemical engineer, when you look at this bridge, can you please tell me why a structural engineer, a civil engineer, would call this a resilient bridge? What do you see there that makes it resilient? You're pretty good for a chemical engineer. For those of you who are watching at home, I wish I had a microphone for you right now. The triangular shape gives it strength. The cables provide support. And the posts, did you say? Oh, no, you said the beams, lateral support with the beams. Okay. It's designed, okay, and even the foundations. Look at the size of the foundations. Now, there's a lot to talk about here when it comes to our kids and their resilience. Because they need a whole lot of... He's safe now, thank you, Sharon. I've just cut him off right then, but we'll keep that handy. We might need you again, we'll see. Our kids need support. In fact, you will be more resilient when you have support around you than when you don't. It's the support that makes the bridge resilient. You'll be resilient when you've got strong foundations. At the risk of treading on really sensitive ground, we know that kids are more resilient when the shape of their family is a strong shape. For some of you, that's an unfair thing for me to say because in spite of everything you've done, your family's not the ideal shape anymore, the shape that has the greatest strength, which is kids being raised by both biological parents. There is a two-parent privilege for children raised in those homes, that kids raised by a single parent, in 80+% of cases it's a single mum, those kids just can't get access to. Not that some single parents are doing it better than many coupled parents, so I want to, again, I'm being really want to be really gentle when I say what I'm saying because there's no shame or judgment going on here. But these are the things that statistically are going to make the bridge and our families more resilient. Okay? And so typically that's what we're talking about. What are we doing foundationally? What are we doing for support? What are we doing in terms of creating the shapes and the structures that are going to help our kids to be resilient? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. What about this bridge? Jason? Sharon, can we get the microphone back? I need Jason. Jason's the star of the show tonight. You know what? He's getting serious. He's taken his jacket off. All right, Jason, describe to me why this bridge is perhaps not as resilient. This is a fragile bridge relative to the first one.
The structure's all wrong. There's no supporting beams. There's nothing supporting from the top to take up flex and moments. Looks like it's just stuck in the water. It's pretty.
Yeah, thank you. It's made of different stuff as well. It's, again, yeah, steel versus wood. So when the tides come in, or when there's rain, or when there's hail, or when there's vehicles going across it and adding weight to it, or when the sun beats down on it, this one, it just is not made of the same stuff. So we would call this fragile. All right, question for everybody. What's the opposite of fragile? Is the opposite of fragile resilient? Strong? We're back where we began. Yeah. Unbreakable. I like it. Unbreakable. So there is technically no exact word in the English language that I think is a perfect antonym for fragile, and so we usually talk about resilience. And for the rest of the night, we are going to talk about resilience. But the word that I prefer comes from the title of a book by a guy called Nassim Taleb. Don't bother reading it. He's just so verbose. It's called Anti-Fragile. Anti-Fragile. And what he does is he makes the argument that as humans, we are not like bridges. Whoop, hang on a sec, wrong button. As humans, we're not like bridges. Because no matter how much weight this thing carries, and no matter how many elements it's exposed to, with tides and waves and wind and sun, snow and whatever else, that bridge stays as it is. This bridge breaks down. But I guess a better way to ask, instead of saying what's the opposite of fragile, is what's the opposite of breaking down? Is it staying the same? Staying firm? I reckon I don't think that's the opposite of breaking down. I think that's what that first bridge is doing. Deteriorating is the fragility, that's the breaking down, right? That's fragile, but the opposite of that, growing. Yeah, building up. So that first bridge, it's never going to get built up, no matter how much goes over it. It's going to need ongoing maintenance just to stay as it is. But humans are different to bridges. When we face hardship, we get stronger. We get built up. That's resilience. It's getting, well, technically it's not, it's anti-fragility, but we're going to call it resilience for the rest of the night because that's easier. Okay, that's our definition for tonight. Adaptive outcomes through adversity. Avoiding breaking down, being built up because of the adversity. My biceps, if I get into the gym and I start doing curls, my latissimus dorsi, if I get on that chin-up bar and start doing this, it gets stronger the more I do it, right? I'm putting it under stress and it's getting stronger. And our children's psychology is the same, unless we live in 2025 and we believe that allowing our children to experience the psychological equivalent of a push-up is going to do them harm and damage and cause them anxiety and depression. I believe that in decades from now, we're going to look back on today and say, what were we thinking? Because of the horrendous way that we label, diagnose, medicate, and treat children when they're having a difficult time. And instead of looking at these kids who are struggling in the classroom to sit still and saying, well, the classroom environment is not always conducive to, children are not always designed to sit still for long periods of time, like 6 hours a day. we say, oh, no, they've got ADHD, we need to medicate them now. What are we doing? Now, in case any of you are raising neurodivergent children, I'm not arguing that you do not have challenges with your children, nor am I arguing that these labels don't have a place in our society. What I am arguing is that if we change environments, we usually see that there's a cessation or at least a dramatic reduction in their symptoms, and they start to adapt really well to a much more positive, healthy environment. It's just extraordinary what happens. So, when do your children show a lack of resilience? When do your children just sort of, instead of being built up, when do they start to crumble under pressure and stress? 30 seconds together, you can share your most frustrating, this is not therapy by the way, share your most frustrating story about the kids crumbling, and then I'll get your feedback. Back to the front in 10. We need to move fairly quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I wish we could talk for ages. Let's get it. By the way, if you don't want to dob your kids in, or if you don't want to look like you're getting it wrong as a parent, it's okay for you to say, my sister-in-law's kids are they're a disaster. That's what you guys would, that's exactly where I love it, okay. So when do you see, or just kids in general, when do you see kids in general really starting to struggle and showing a lack of resilience? They're breaking down under pressure. Yep. Fantastic. All right, so let me say that again, and in fact, I'm going to give you an acronym and extend that. Okay, so anyone speak German? How does a German police officer tell you to stop? HALT, H-A-L-T, H-A-L-T. These 4 things, actually we're going to add an S on the end. It's not grammatically correct to do that in Germany, but we're in Australia and I can get away with it, okay? German police officer halts you, H-A-L-T-S. Hungry, angry and emotional. Well, hangry, yeah. But you're not always angry because you're hungry. Sometimes you just got a parking fine while you're having dinner. L is for lonely. So you can be sitting right next to somebody who loves you, but feel disconnected. You can be sleeping beside someone who loves you and feel disconnected, right? Lonely. And you do feel alone in those moments, don't you? T is for tired, and S is for stressed, which can come through having a new routine or things not making sense. You could also make S stress as in your body is sick, so it's stressed that way as well, okay? But what you'll find is that those 5 things will be useful anytime your child is either A, showing a lack of resilience, that is they're breaking down under pressure, or B, just having a hissy fit. And if you just go, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed, which one are they? You'll usually find that it's all of them. And you'll usually find that if you give them a hug, give them a bite to eat, and listen, that you've dealt with all of them except tired now. And they get a lot better really fast. Not that I'm suggesting that every time your child's upset you should feed them, have a chocolate chip cookie, kiddo. That's not going to be a great solution either, but you get the point. So really appreciate, kids show a lack of resilience when they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and stressed. All right, what else did you discuss? Yep. Okay, bullying or challenges in the relationships generally, which kind of ties in a little bit with lonely, but I guess it's sort of social relationships generally. When I talk to school psychologists, school counsellors, heads of year, heads of wellbeing, school principals, whoever deals with kids a lot in a school, the number one challenge that they encounter is kids and their relationships, especially girls. I know that it's really reductionist, but when boys are upset with each other, they shove each other, they call each other a name, they do what's known as the male monkey dance. I know that sounds a bit pejorative, but it's ingrained. It starts with some name calling, then some pointing, then maybe a push on the thing, and then you come on, and then somebody intervenes. They're like, "Oh, you're lucky they stopped us, or I would have smashed you." Right? They're all saying the same thing, and every guy in the room knows that it's true. I was going to start with the parking inspector tonight. You want to have a go? But he was big. Not part of my normal presentation. I've got to stop. All right. Am I resilient? All right, so social pressures, yeah. The quality of our connections is one of the biggest predictors of our well-being and our resilience. Make no mistake, the degree to which we feel like we belong has potentially the biggest impact on our well-being of anything. And if you have a child who does not feel... There's a difference between fitting in and belonging as well, okay? So there's 5 kids, 6 kids sitting around the table or standing in a circle, and your child walks up, and if they want to fit in, they have to do things to prove that they fit in, right? It's kind of like going, let me in, and they've got to try and fit in. Think about the times where you've tried to fit in. It requires effort. Sometimes it requires selling part of your soul, becoming somebody that you're not necessarily living up to your highest version of you, because you want to fit in. They're not letting you in, so you've got to prove that you belong there, right? But I like the word belonging, because when I walk up to a group of people that I feel like I belong with, I don't have to fit in. They just open up and let me in. And if your kids feel like they have to constantly try to fit in, they're not in the right circles. I had a quick tangent. We don't have time for the story, but I'm sharing it anyway because it just gives me little goosebumps and it's beautiful. We moved to Queensland a number of years ago from Illawarra, Wollongong, and when we got there, my wife was sitting in the car next to her sister who lived nearby. They'd been out for an hour or two doing some stuff. And Kylie was saying, we've been here for about a year and I just don't feel like I really belong in any circles. Like I'm on the edge of the school mum circle, I'm on the edge of the church circle, I'm on the edge of... And she named 4 or 5 different circles that she's on the edge of. She said, I just don't feel like I quite belong in any of them. And my youngest daughter, who at the time was probably about 3, Emily, she's listening to the conversation while she's sitting in the back seat. And she pipes up and she goes, you're in my circle, mummy. I know it's so cute, but at a deeper level, it highlights exactly what I'm describing, right? You don't have to do anything to have my love, my support. We belong together. And that's what our kids need. They just, it's so hard when they don't fit in. It's really, 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 really tough. My definition of connection, for those of you who are note takers, feeling seen, heard and valued. Feeling seen, heard and valued. My favourite thing is when I share this at like principals conferences and then I bump into a principal a month or 2 later and they're like, on my whiteboard now, the question is everyone who comes into my office, do they feel seen, heard and valued? When your kids come to talk to you, do they feel seen, heard and valued? When they see your face, what do they see on your face? Like you walk in the door tonight when this is over, and they're still up. They're not going to be asleep, you know it, they're going to be awake, right? And they'll be on screens even though you said turn it off, right? And the 10-year-old's probably beating up the 7-year-old or something like that. It's going to be horrible. And what are they going to see on your face? I know. We'll stay here till 10 o'clock after all, it'll be fine. What are they going to see on your face? Because what most kids see on their parents' faces is this. It's the way I am. Yeah. You know what it's called? It's called the RBF. Do you know what the RBF stands for? Right, yeah. It's terribly gendered because men do it as well. In fact, sometimes men do it worse. The resting bitch face, in case you missed it. So I became a grandpa 2 years ago. My eldest daughter and her husband had a baby about 2 years ago. In fact, Indy has her 2nd birthday in about 3 weeks. And I discovered something about how I show up. Because I really try hard to show up well for my kids. But now that when they live 10 minutes away, and whenever Indy comes over to visit with her mum and dad, or dad, whenever she comes over to visit, I've noticed something happens to my face. As she walks past my office door, my face goes like this. And then I just scream, Indy, come and get Pop's cuddle. And everything else stops. The computer gets shut and we play. And it occurred to me on a recent visit, after I'd been playing with Indy for about 40 minutes, that I still hadn't even said hello to Chanel. That's what grandparents do, right? How are we showing up? Are they feeling that connection? But where are they getting it? Because as I can't remember, it was you that said it, when their relationships are, that's definitely going to be an indicator that they're not going to be resilient. They're going to struggle to adapt positively because they feel like they're not worthy. Okay, let's get a couple of other answers. When do your kids show a lack of resilience? Over here and then here, yep. When you're around. They show a lack of resilience when you're around. I think that you're probably being really hard on yourself. That sounds heartbreaking to hear. Oh, you mean because you're there so you'll rescue them and do it all for them? Yeah. That way, when you're okay. That is good. That is a good answer. Nobody has ever said that, and I've done this with like 100,000 people or more. That's great self-awareness. That's why here, yeah. Stop rescuing them. There we go. I love it. Thank you so much. What about you?
It's a little bit different because I work as a school nurse as well as being a mum, but I find some of the kids come in and they know their parents. It's like this lack of resilience because they know their parents are going to jump in of, oh, Billy hit you. You know? Ties in. I just need mum here. I don't have to be resilient. Or, yeah, Billy hit me and mum, you sort it out.
Yes.
And you can see that dynamic happening, that I'm here because I'm the victim.
So we've got to get this sorted out, okay? Your children, remember what we said about that first bridge? It's resilient because it has strong supports. So you're saying that your children are showing a lack of resilience because you're there, and we've got to make sure that our presence is supportive rather than weakening. That's the trick. I'm going to tell you how to do it shortly, okay? So important. It ties in with both of your answers. Okay, I've got an answer over here. We'll go lightning round. We've got to go fast because we're having too much fun. I'm telling too many tangential stories.
I think just tying into what the ladies and you were saying as well is helping to build that resilience is actually being open and being honest about situations. Things are hard. There's grief, there's death, there's divorce, there's financial problems, whatever. But I think if to certain levels, depending on their age, we're a bit open and say, look, yeah, things are a bit hard right now. This is happening. It helps them be part of it and helps them deal with it. Otherwise, they're kept in the dark and they don't know how to deal with shit when it comes up, to be blunt. Like, it's just kind of like, what happens now?
But you know, a few years ago when I wrote my book about teenage girls, I asked them what the hardest thing about being a teenage girl was. And many of them said, I'm struggling with my parents' stress. Or I don't know what's going on with my parents, or I'm worried about my dad's well-being. And all these kids are in the dark because we think they're not able to cope with it. Now, our children are not our therapists and we're not supposed to unload everything on them, but figuring out ways that we can communicate about the realities of life's hardships with them really makes a difference as well. This is great. Okay, let's move on. I want to talk to you about some stats right now in Australia when we talk about resilience levels. Here's what we see happening. From grade 3 through to grade 12, we see, we're talking about kids that are at a good or a high level of resilience. Around about 57% of them are at a good or a high level of resilience in grade 3, grade 4. So they're about 8 years old, and 43% of them already are not at a good or a high level. But as they get older, there's pretty much a linear decline in resilience levels. There's a slightly big jump down at grade 7. I wonder why. And then around grade 9 or grade 10, there's a second really big one as well. Okay, but basically just like this. Yep, here's another one for you. Oh, sorry, let's just go back here. What that means is that by the time they finish grade 12, only 1 in 4 has high levels of resilience. So it's not really about helping you to make sure that your kids are those 1 in 4. And ideally, we'll get that number up higher, although the trend is in the wrong direction. All right, having a look here, psychological distress in Australian teens, 15 to 19, from 2012 through until a few years ago. Here's another one. This is all people in Australia 15 and over by gender. 2007 through to 2011, you can see it's pretty stable. And then from 2011, let's say 12, 14 years ago, this happens. If we have a look at it by age group, this is really quite interesting. It's the same data, but just separated out by age. You can already see that our youngest kids are the most psychologically distressed. Part of that is, though, because by the time you get to 65 and older, the people with the greatest psychological distress have usually died. I know that's a really morbid kind of way to look at it, but that's basically what's going on, right? Like if you are living a very hard, horrible, miserable life, you tend not to live very long. And so you'd expect that older people would have lower levels of psychological distress simply because people start to die. And it's the healthiest and happiest people who usually live longer. I know that you can all think of some miserable old people. We're talking about averages here, okay? All right. But here's what happened over the last 10 or 12 years. We'll talk about why in a sec. So psychological distress is the opposite of resilience, okay? This is being broken down by the hardships of life rather than getting stronger because of the hardships of life. We're talking about anxiety, depression, stress. This one here, looking at loneliness, there's only two lines that we really need to pay attention to here. The top line, that's our elderly. And the bottom line in light blue, that's our youngest people. And as you can see, through until about 10 or 15 years ago, loneliness was generally dropping across the board, which is good. And then around about, let's say 2012, this happened. In other words, our youngest and most connected people started reporting themselves as the loneliest people on the planet. If we have a look at this one here, we're talking here about kids that show up at the hospital with mental health challenges and they get what we call sectioned in New South Wales. That is, the triage nurse says, we are not letting you go home because you or somebody else is going to be in danger if you do. And so you can see here that the numbers are fairly stable until about 10 or 15 years ago, and then so what's going on? Over the last 10 or 15 years particularly, everything's going in the wrong direction. You guys are so funny. I've got you waving your phone at me and everyone's like, how can it be though? Because we love this. It's the precious. Isn't that precious? Everyone seen The Lord of the Rings? Have you ever tried to take this off your kids? They turn into Gollum. The wicked parents, they want the precious. Like you're not allowed to take the precious off them. How could this be the problem? This makes them happy, doesn't it? They isolate themselves. But hang on, are they really isolated? Aren't they with their friends? No face-to-face connection. Check this out. A study that was conducted last year where parents and kids were hooked up to brain scanners and they had a face-to-face conversation, they had a Zoom conversation. The brain lit up more than 9 times as much in a face-to-face conversation as in a Zoom conversation. 9 times the neural activity, 9 times the brain activation, 9 times the blood and oxygen buzzing around their brain, sending stimulatory and excitatory signals saying, this is good. I'm feeling seen, heard and valued. I'm connecting. You know what you do when you're on a Zoom call? Think about it. All of you who have done Zoom meetings. You turn the camera off. You start scrolling your favourite news website. Do anything but pay attention. You're not seeing, hearing and valuing anyone. Your brain just goes... Recent research shows that the brain starts to lose grey matter, that is brain cells, the more time we spend online. Recent research from Macquarie Uni, just round the corner. Macquarie Uni researchers, one of my mates, Dr. Brad Marshall and Professor Wayne Warburton, that is a fascinating study where they showed that kids that have high levels of smartphone use or problematic gaming go down in every single domain of well-being that they measured, compared to people who don't have those same problematic screen usage issues. You know that Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta as in Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp and Reels, His kids are homeschooled with about a dozen other kids. They pay for their private special tutors to come in on sort of stuff. No devices. No devices, no screens. You know, Bill Gates wouldn't let his kids have phones until they were into their mid to late teens. It doesn't matter which tech guru you look at. They all keep their kids away from screens. None of them let them use AI. But you know what they're telling us? It's the education revolution. This is what your children need. Why would they be doing that? So good for shareholders. Meta had record profits last quarter of something like $240 billion for a quarter. These people are so mendacious. They would lie to their parents to get 50 cents out of them. They are disgracefully mendacious. They are completely dishonest. And they have never yet done a single thing in the best interests of our children. You know Kevin Rudd's Education Revolution, 2007, 2008, every child will have a laptop or a tablet. Where'd that come from? And everyone was like, yes, it's the way of the future. And kids need to learn to code. What a load of crap. I don't need to learn to code. It's called AI. It'll do it for you. Don't worry. You know who really wanted our kids to have screens? The tech companies. I didn't ask for it. Caused more headaches in my house than I wanted. Far out. So social media, a couple more things on social media just while we're on it, because you got me going. Thank you so much for that. Social media, what we know is that on average, children in Australia, we've got 2 or 3 good high quality reports on this now. Children in Australia, upper primary school through to high school, are spending on average 9 hours per day in recreational screen time. Let me be clear, that's recreational screen time. That's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Discord, and gaming. 9 hours. Doesn't include their schoolwork. 9 hours in recreational screen time. What time are they going to bed? Where are the parents? What the hell's going on? How do you stop it? Oh, that's a different presentation. I can't help you with that one tonight. If we have time, I'll answer that tonight. Okay, we need to talk about limit setting. It's really important, and it's not impossible, but it's really, really damn hard. Yeah. And also, let's be honest about it. There's going to be 1 or 2 people in the room who'll disagree with me, but we love our phones. We love them. And when you get a couple of spare minutes, like at the traffic lights. No, okay. Oh, that's just me. No, I'm just kidding. That's not that. When you get a couple of spare minutes in the shopping lot, when you're waiting for some food to show up, we pull this out, don't we? Like, I wonder what happened on Instagram. I just need... Researchers have recently found that we often pull these things out because we're bored. And so they test people's levels of boredom before they look at their phones and then after, and they're more bored after. It actually shuts your brain down, but not in a good way. When we talk about the word recreation, that means again, create. This is where we're supposed to recreate ourselves, right? But when we're doing this, there's no recreating going on. Our brains have this thing called a default mode network. It's what clicks in when we don't have to think about anything. Anyone watched Alone? No. Really? Alone. Yes. Alone. No, it's not the airplane one. Alone is, no, that's Lost. That's like 25 years ago. No, Alone is this thing, you can see it on SBS, so you don't have to pay for the streaming. On SBS, there's this show, don't watch the Australian one, it's hopeless, but the American one and the Denmark one, oh, so good. They just drop people in the middle of nowhere. Just watch the US season 1, it will blow your mind. I'm so hooked on this show. They drop people in the middle of nowhere, and it's just whoever stays there for the longest. They're on their own, no one's within 10 Ks of each other, and they can't get to each other because of the dense bushland or whatever. $500,000 for whoever can survive the longest. You've got no food, you've got no water, you've got nothing, you just got to figure out how to stay there. $500,000 if you can win. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because I was talking about the default mode network, the part of your brain that switches on when you don't have to think about anything. That's where you start to figure out what you value, who you are, what life's about, what your identity is. And if you're constantly staring at this little rectangle in your hand, you never give your default mode network a chance to kick in. So you never ask the hard questions of yourself. You never start to think about, who am I? What do I value? What am I working towards? What are my goals? What's purposeful? What matters in my life? You just don't do you don't do the inner work. And so we're raising man children specifically, and a whole lot of girls who are feeling completely lost and don't know what they value and are making foolish decisions because they haven't done the inner work. But you watch Lost and you're in the bush with nobody and nothing, day after day after day after day after day after day after day, and pretty soon your default mode network kicks in and you start asking a lot of questions like, what do I value? What's really important to me? What do I love? Who do I love? Why? And our kids just need more of that. When you were a kid, you did not have this, and you used to have time to think. Our kids don't. I asked my wife a couple of months ago, I said to her, what did we used to do before this? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And she started to make up some answers. And I was like, well, yeah, kind of. But if you're at a bus stop, or if you're in a supermarket queue, or if you were waiting to pick up the kids from school, you'd either talk to people, or if nobody was around, you would do nothing. Like, people watch is nothing, let's be honest, right? Well, not always, but yeah, you'd people watch or you'd just do nothing, and we just don't do nothing anymore. We're all so busy all the time. So I could keep on going about social media, but I'm going to stop there. Let's keep going. Why else is this happening? Because that was only supposed to take 30 seconds and it took about 7 minutes. Yep, so they're feeling lonely, they're losing their sense of belonging. Okay, so the quality of your relationships is critical here. Estefan, can we just get the other mic on as well, please? We're just passing that around, thanks. I don't know if there's any research to support this, but it resonates for me. You become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I talk to my kids about this all the time, like, who are you spending time with? What are their values? What are they teaching you? What are they encouraging you to do? What is important to them? Because you'll become like them. How are they stretching themselves? What projects are they working on? What are they interested in? How are they trying to develop? Oh, they're not? Well, why are you spending time with them? And I do this activity when I go into schools. I'm going to do it right now with Steve. Can you come out here for me, Steve, please? I need you to volunteer. This has not been checked with OH&S, so you're doing this at your own risk. Can you stand up on the chair, please? Yep. Thank you. All right. Nice shoes.
Thanks.
I think I actually have those. You did? They're a different colour.
Red is from Spain. I love them.
Yes. They're very nice shoes. They're very nice shoes. Except mine are more of just a standard brown. But anyway, let's go back to this. Steve, I want you to grab me on the forearm, and I want you to, because you're strong, I want you to pull me up onto the chair with you. All right, stop there. I don't want you to hurt yourself. It's really hard to pull people up. But watch this. Without any trouble at all, I'm pulling him down. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Our kids, who are they hanging around with? Because it's really easy for those people that they're hanging around with to pull them down. Really, really easy. It's hard for our kids to pull their friends up. Yep.
My grandfather taught me this when I was a kid growing up, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It was a very simple phrase that said, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are.
Yeah.
And it just makes so much sense.
I heard, rather than show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are, I heard, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Same idea. Same idea. It's about identity, right? This idea of belonging. And if our kids are hanging around with people... Now, does that mean that tonight you need to go home and just say, hey, new friendship group starting tomorrow. Don't like them. They're pulling you down. If you do that, those friends become forbidden fruit. And what happens with forbidden fruit? More enticing. So we've got to figure out, again, you asked about limit setting with screens, but it's the same with relationships. It's the same with all discipline matters. How we have this conversation is so important, okay? So again, I want to talk about the discipline stuff. Okay, what's another time when you see, what's another reason that you think this is happening? Resilience levels going down, yep. Oh, thank you. You're so helpful, Sharon, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I saw in the charts that 2021 had several spikes. Could COVID be a reason?
Yeah, COVID's definitely part of it. Some of you are going to really hate me for what I'm about to say here. Governments don't do inquiries unless they know what the answers are going to be. And then they only do inquiries when they want the answers that the inquiry is going to give them. No Australian government has done an inquiry into COVID. I wonder why. Right, but around the world, as more and more information is coming out about how our governments dealt with this, fundamentally, while a few things, especially in the early stages, were definitely the right thing to do, over time, Australian governments were breathtakingly wrong. They just were. Now, I know that if you're a person who's dealing with additional needs, if somebody had any additional sort of health challenges, you're really grateful for the way that the Australian government overreacted, and I get that, and I'm not. This is not a personal thing. This is about, on average, for the population. Shutting down schools, the worst thing that they could have done. And especially the fact that they kept it going even when we had better evidence to show that it wasn't necessary. The panic merchants, the trauma peddlers, they all got involved, and now we're paying the price. They absolutely got it wrong. But what they've also done now is they've undermined the trust that the population needs to have in governments to do the right thing, because in future people are going to be like, oh yeah, I remember what the government did last time, I'm not going to trust them this time. So they've actually shot themselves in the foot. It's just been a disastrous level of mismanagement. It's been horrible. And no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. They just screwed it up. All right, next. Why else are we seeing this happen? Over here and then across here. Thanks, Sharon. Disconnection with family. Okay, two parents working, or if you're doing it on your own, one parent working two jobs because it's so hard to... How do you afford to live in Sydney, for goodness sakes, right? Like, you've got to have 43 jobs, and it's just bonkers. There's disconnection with family. Families are smaller. We rely on... we don't have access to grandparents and aunts and uncles because we're all moving all over the place. And if you want to go from one side of Sydney to the other side of Sydney, you need to give yourself a day and a half. Like... It's a lot. So we've got family disconnection. I know hyperbole is a little bit excessive, but stay with me. Just shout it out. Life's too busy. Let me share a really fun story with you. In 1875, if you were living in New York City in 1875, the tallest building was a church. And let's say you fell asleep in 1875 and woke up 30 years later. 30-year coma. You wake up in 1905. When you wake up, there's stuff called cardboard. Like there's cardboard boxes. You've never seen that before. There's these things called hamburgers. You've never seen them before. There's this new drink called Coca-Cola, which is full of drugs. There's skyscrapers. There's bicycles. You've never seen them before. There's these things called sneakers with rubber soles on them. That's new. You've never seen... the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, have just done their first aeroplane at Kitty Hawk, the first plane ride. All of this stuff has happened in that 30-year period. And what people started to complain of was this thing, I can't remember what it was called, the exact name escapes my mind right now, but there was another name for it, like the slang name for it was called New Yorkitis. And you know who got it? It was all the people who were doing the office works, all the white-collar workers, all the people who were doing the high-stress jobs, not the people that were out working in the fields and the farms, but the people who were working indoors doing the high-pressure jobs. And they were basically saying the speed of life is insane. We're driving ourselves crazy. Compare 1905 to 2025. Hello, we are living with Paleolithic neural architecture. And I'm going to go as far as to say godlike technology. And our brains just can't handle it. It's not good for our brains. Across the Easter break, my wife and I went to a little Indonesian island called Sumba. No Wi-Fi. No electricity. They had a solar generator with some battery for a couple of hours of light at night, but that was about it. All the food that we ate came out of the ground, organically grown, no herbicides or pesticides, for like 8 days. By the end of the 8 days, I've never felt so alive. I felt healthier and better than I've ever felt in my life. I also noticed that nobody on Sumba has depression or anxiety. Well, I mean, I didn't interview the whole population, but looking around, these people looked like they were thriving. Isn't that fascinating? Fast-paced world. Oh, we could go on and on and on and on. Oh, last one, and then we've got to get to some solutions. Oh, okay, so let me say that for everyone online. This is the bit where I always get in trouble. And I like it when no one brings it up. Do you think that our culture facilitates and aids and supports the labels? Is that what you're saying?
We now can identify it more, so we're more proactive in seeking help for that age group.
There's a correlation between talking about mental health problems and mental health problems. So it's a double-edged sword. Okay, so if somebody's struggling with mental health and you talk about mental health problems, they're like, oh, that sounds like me, I should go and get help. So that's a good thing. But here's something else that's really bonkers. When you start talking about mental health problems, people start saying, oh, that sounds like me. Maybe I've got mental health problems. Now, I don't have it on this slideshow and it's going to take me too long to look it up, but if I was to take you through the checklist for ADHD, every single one of you would say, that's my kid. Or that's me. You know who the number one, sorry, before I come to you, the number one population for ADHD diagnosis in the world today? Middle-aged mums. Everybody is getting a diagnosis. Now, if that's you tonight, I'm not pointing fingers at you and saying you don't have ADHD, but let me suggest that you don't have ADHD because everybody's got it. And everyone's neurodivergent. When you look at the checklist, it's bonkers. And if you have a look at the evolution of autism and what it came from and what it is today, it's nuts. Now, I don't want to dismiss or devalue the very real challenges that some of you are going through with your children. I know that some of you are carrying loads that are staggering. And I also know that these diagnoses are legitimate. But we do not. If you have a look at NDIS data, the number of people who are getting funding for autism, we just don't have that many autistic kids in this country. I'm sorry, we don't. I'm not saying that yours aren't. I'm saying we don't have that many autistic kids in this country. And when you have a look at the way that the definitions have changed and you have a look at the way the mental health industrial complex has developed, you know what else? Oh, no, I'm not going to go there. You've started me. I've got to stop. We have a culture where it's culturally acceptable to say that you've got it. In fact, it's almost culturally expected. And you know what else? When you do say it, you get a lot of reinforcement, you get a lot of support, and it's not necessarily healthy support, and it doesn't help you to grow. In fact, I will say this, I'll say it really openly in public because I'm mad about it. There's a group who've got a Facebook group, it's called School Can't Australia. Some of you might even be members of the group. Can't means don't want to. Your kids can go to school, they don't want to. Now, do they have legitimate reasons for not going to school? Absolutely they do. But this isn't about your child's inability to go to school. This is about an environment that's not supporting your children's basic psychological needs, and so they're engaging in what's more properly known as emotion-based school avoidance. And our job is not to say, oh, my child can't go to school. Our job is to say, what is it about the environment that is impacting my child so severely that they are refusing to go to school unless I drag them into the school, which is not healthy and not helpful. But here's the thing, if I'm running a group called School Can't because my child can't go to school, and then my child suddenly can go to school, what does that say about everything that I've always believed? What does it say about my identity, my child's identity? And I just don't think the labels are helpful. Even if your child qualifies for a label, I don't think the labels are helpful as a general rule, with some exceptions. And I believe that that may be one of the biggest issues here with our resilience problem. We just keep on screening everyone for mental health problems and discovering more and more people have got mental health problems. Now, maybe we do. Maybe our environment just sucks. But we are, what is it? Born resilient. Now, I cut you off. What you're going to say, and then we're going to move on. I've already said it. All right, awesome. Okay. All right, so let's talk about what builds resilience. We've talked about a whole bunch of stuff that undoes resilience, and there's more that we could talk about, but we need to move on. I'm going to share 4 things that I think are going to make the biggest impact in helping your kids to be resilient. 4 things. And we're going to start here with this one, which we've already covered off a fair bit. The impact, the power, the importance of belonging. I have water. Okay, do you need it? That's for me. Thank you. I had forgotten. We've talked about this already. So remember, what is connection? Connection is feeling... That was terrible. Seen, heard and valued. Okay, good. Connection is feeling... Jason, what is it? You're awesome. Well done. Seen, heard and valued. I love it. Connection is feeling seen, heard and valued. Let me share a story about how this actually works. We're going to go to the Hawaiian island of Kauai. A quick tangent. Anyone watching Chief of War on Apple at the moment with Jason Momoa? Oh my goodness, it is so good. You've got to check it out. It's so good. Anyway, on the Hawaiian island of Kauai after World War II in the 1950s, there was a community there that was widely regarded as highly, highly challenged. When you look at what was going on there, let me list it. So there was a lot of people who didn't finish high school, low levels of employment, high unemployment, high levels of alcohol and other drug use, misuse and abuse, high levels of domestic and family violence, lots of kids being born out of wedlock. This was the 1950s, so that was scandalous. I mean, it still has some stigma even in 2025, but in the 1950s, this was big. But pretty much everything you don't want to have happen was happening in that community. A researcher by the name of Emmy Werner gets funding to go into the community, and she's allowed to study and follow for 10 years every single child born. I think it was 1966, maybe it was, 1956, might have been 55. Anyway, it was mid-50s, it was that year. Every single child born that year in that community. There's about 690, I think it was 698 kids that were born in that community that year. She's got their medical records, she's got interviews with the parents and the doctors, and she follows what's going on for the first 10 years. She starts to get school reports, she gets to interview some of the teachers and some other community members. She follows the kids, they start to fill in some questionnaires as they get older and can read and write and fill in questionnaires, collects all this data, gets more funding and is allowed to continue the study until they're adults. It's another 10 years of funding. Now they're in the mid-1970s. She's got 20 years of data on these kids, including whether they finished high school, how they performed in high school, what their GPA was, all that information and more. This is turning into a really important project, and the government gives her another 20 years of funding. The experiment wraps up in the data collection wraps up in the 1990s when these kids are now 40. They start to comb through all the data, they're writing research reports. And here's what they discover. 2/3 of those kids, about 450 of them, followed their parents' patterns. So they don't finish high school, they're either pregnant or they get someone pregnant, or they end up in jail, they're unemployed, high levels of alcohol and drug use, misuse going on, like just all the bad stuff, 2/3 of them. But 1/3 are different. 1/3 thrive, 1/3 buck the trend. They finish high school, they get jobs or go on to university and then get jobs. They have stable relationships. They don't have any alcohol and drug problems. Like, they just live good, healthy, safe lives. They raise families. And Werner and her team, who were really looking at disadvantage and problems, were intrigued. What's going on? What happened with these 220, 230 kids that have just defied all of our expectations? They comb through the data. One thing stands head and shoulders above anything else that they could pinpoint, and it was the quality of their relationships with one caring adult who often was not a parent because parents were absent or in jail or drug affected. Often it was a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle or a neighbour or a sports coach or a church leader or a school teacher or someone in the community who was there for them no matter what. The quality of our connections, the more we feel like we belong, the more that is a protective factor. It is simply the most important thing. What does it mean to really belong? Here's what it means in a school setting. It means when your kids walk through the gate to go to school tomorrow, one of their friends or one of their peers looks across and sees your child and says, hey, come sit with us. That's what it means to belong. Come sit with us. Probably the most wonderful thing that any child can ever hear when they're in the school playground. Come sit with us. What does it mean to belong at home? How often are we critical? Our kids don't need critics. They need models. How often are we judgmental? Not like that, like this. They don't need judges, they need advocates. How can we make it so that they feel like they belong? How can we make it so that, imagine your relationship with your kids is a bucket, okay? And in the bucket, you've got one of two things. Water, that's connection, feeling seen, heard and valued. And air, that's correction and direction. Think about your morning with your children today. How much water went in the bucket before they went to school? How much did your children go, oh, I'm really feeling seen, heard and valued this morning. This is awesome. You wore them home on Friday. Yeah, well, I was so happy to see them for the first 14 seconds. You try. All right, so let's talk about this for a sec. Yeah, there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, I know. Yeah. Here's how you make mornings magic. Number one, your morning begins the night before. Okay? So, tonight when you go home, you need to know where their school bag... they'll be asleep. Where's the school bag? Where are the shoes? Where's the library bag? Where's the sports uniform? Where are their socks? Is the shirt ironed? Do they know where their jumper is? This is the third jumper they've lost this year, I know. Okay. Do you know what they're having for lunch tomorrow? Do you have the food in the fridge? Right? That's the first way to make sure that your morning is magic. Here's the second way to make sure your morning is magic. You go to bed on time. Don't watch another episode of Alone. Go to bed on time. And get up 15 minutes before you need to. Have the discipline to do that, because if you get up 15 minutes early and you have your shower and you have your cuppa or your smoothie or your whatever it is that you have, when you wake them up, you're good. Third, don't tell them what to do. Instead, ask them, what's next? Do you need a hand or have you got this? So what are we doing here? How much correction and direction is there with this process? 0. How much connection is there with this process? It's all connection. And you're pouring water into that bucket. Seriously, the teachers tell me, they watch the cars as you're driving them to school, right? They watch you as you're getting closer to the drop-off. And they can see you going, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, we're late again and I'm not going to have it. I'm going to be late for work. If you would just do as you were told, this is, all right. And then you're getting closer and so you start to smile like, have a great day, I love you. They know. They've seen the whole thing. They know. Connection. It's just the core. It's the heart of well-being. What are we doing to connect? You know the happiest families? You know what they do more than the unhappy families? Have dinner. Yeah, dinner together is important, but it doesn't help if everyone's just cranky at each other during dinner. The happiest families laugh. They just have fun. Just pause for a second, ask, when was the last time I really laughed with my kids? When was the last time we were at the table and we were telling stories and cracking up? or I told a joke, or I accidentally farted, or, like, some of you, I thought that was funny. No one thought it was funny. Is that not funny? I've got 6 daughters and they think it's funny. All right. So, connection. It's about pouring as much water in that bucket as you can. It's not about indulging your children. It's about seeing them and hearing them and valuing them. Yeah? That's different to indulging them. But on a Saturday afternoon when all the jobs are done and everyone's relaxed, can I tell you how much fun it is to say, hey kids, it's been a while since we've had some chocolate ice cream. Let's go buy gelato. And you just jump in the car and go down to the local ice cream shop. And here's what I do. I do not buy an ice cream each because they're $9. The acai, I can't eat that stuff, and that's expensive as well. No, but what I'll do is like, hey, so we're going to buy a double scoop, and you two are going to share the double scoop, and we just buy the double scoops because they're cheaper. You get 2 scoops for $9 instead of 1 scoop for $8. I've got 6 kids. It's expensive. Say that again. We could just go down to Woolies and buy 4 litres of no frills and have ice cream for a week. But anyway, but it's about connection. Okay, number 2. Oh, hang on. I'm going to share a quick personal story. About 15 years ago, it's probably a bit more than that now. About 15 years ago, I rang my dad. I said, hey, Dad, I finished my PhD. I've been working as an academic for a couple of years, but I've decided that I want to start a business. I want to go out and start writing books and giving talks. I have no idea how to do it. I have no contacts. I have no networks. I have no idea how to run a business. I got nothing. But I feel like leaving the university and doing that kind of work is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And he said, well, that sounds great. If you want to do it, you should do it. I said, no, I wasn't asking for your endorsement, but thank you. So the reason I'm calling you is this. I've got around about 6 to 9 months worth of funds. If it doesn't work out, can we live in your garage until we get back on our feet and figure out what to do next? And he was quiet for a second, and then he said, no. I was like, oh, yeah. And then he said, no, you can live in the house like normal people. You don't need to live in the garage. We'll support you if you need it. And I said, okay, that'd be great. I don't want your support. I don't want to call you. I really want this to work, but it's a gamble. I don't know what I'm doing. Remember the bridge? You're resilient when you've got support. Those kids in Kauai, they were resilient because they had one caring adult. The toughen up princess approach makes kids feel like they are all alone. Drink some concrete and harden up. And the kid's like, I've just been told that I'm not in this relationship, like I don't have the support that I need, I'm on my own. That's the first one. Okay, any questions about connection? Cool, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is identity. You can't be resilient unless you know who you are and what you're all about. Identity comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's what do I value? What do I value? We live in a world now where we try to keep our children away from people who have different values to us in case they contaminate our children. We're all in our silos. If you're a Greens voter, you could definitely never, ever, 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 ever talk to somebody who is a One Nation voter, or Labor and Liberal. Or if you think that Israel faces existential threat and that the hostages should be returned, you simply cannot talk to somebody who says that we should free Palestine, have a 2-state solution, and that Israel deserved everything that they got because of what happened in 1948. Yeah? Because we're in our silos and we believe that we have to convince other people that we're right and they're wrong. But if you go back a generation, that's not how it was. We'd just be like, oh yeah, you're different to me. And that's okay, we can still be friends, we can still talk. we can have differences and still respect one another and recognise that it takes all sorts of people to make the world go round. And we just can't seem to do that anymore. Cancel culture is still alive and well, especially in Australia. There's a bit of a pushback in the US at the moment, but Australia just loves it. Oh, we are precious. Everyone talks about Australians being laid back. We are so uptight. We love our rules. Anyway, I digress. So building identity is about helping our children to figure out what... If you want your children to figure out who they are, the best way to find out who you are is to have somebody challenge you about who you are. Does that make sense? But how? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. First one. A number of years ago, my second daughter was in grade 7. It was November, only about 3 weeks till Christmas holidays. She came home from school. It was hot. She was flashed in the face. I said, "Abby, how's school?" She looked at me, burst into tears, put her head on my shoulder and cried. I held her, and after she'd cried for a bit, I said, "It looks like you had a really tough day today." Please note what I said. I didn't say, "What's wrong?" I didn't say, "Stop crying." I said, "It looks like you had a really tough day today." Why is that different? Yeah, I'm just validating how she feels. I haven't said that she's right or wrong. I haven't tried to get in the detail. She'll tell me when she's ready, but you can't think straight in a high emotion state. So I'm just, it looks like you had a tough day. And she's like, "Oh, yeah. I said, do you want a hug? Do you want some space? Do you want some water? Do you want to talk? What do you need? I'm here for you." And she said, "No, I want to talk." And I said, "Tell me about it." And her best friend, also named Abby, had gone to school that day after not being at school for a couple of days, and said that her mum had cancer. The cancer had been gone for a number of years, but had come back. The doctors had missed it. And it was in her bones, it was in her brain, it was in her lungs, and she had less than... Lost my battery. Oh no, I'm back. She was going to be dead by Christmas. And so we spent some time talking about how I could best support, or how Abby could best support her friend in the ensuing weeks. And the doctors were right. Mrs. Johnson passed away at Christmas time. Let's fast forward to year 8. It's now late February. School's been back for 3 or 4 weeks. And Abby comes bounding in the door. Dad, I've had the best day ever." "It looks like it. You look stoked. What happened? Tell me all about it." "I know what I can do." "That's great. Do about what?" "About the Johnstons." "Oh, what have you got in mind?" "Dad, the Leukemia Foundation are doing World's Greatest Shave next month. And I can raise funds and do the Shave for a Cure. And you guys know this thing, right? The girls dye their hair, the boys take the clippers to their head." I said, "That's amazing, Abby. I'm right behind you. I'm so glad you want to do this. What colour are you going to dye your hair?" And she said, "No, I'm not dyeing it. I'm shaving it." And I said, "You know what? I'm so happy for you if that's what you want to do. But before you go ahead with that, can I just check in with you? You're in grade 8. You've got this beautiful long hair. I'm just nervous that some people might not be nice to you once you've got no hair. Like, boys and girls in grade 8 can be kind of unkind." And she said, "Dad, I've got this." Fast forward 2 weeks, she's raising money. Her little sister Annie, who's in grade 3, 8 years old, "Dad, you know how Abby's doing the Shave for a Cure?" "Uh-huh." Same conversation, same outcome. Okay, so we've got this wonderful hairdresser down the road in Wollongong, Helen's Hair Artistry, and we told them what we were doing, and they said, "Yeah, we'll do it for free, come in and do it." So the Johnsons were there, Mr. Johnson and his daughter Abby, and my daughter Abby, she's there, and she's got a shirt on, and she's ready for it, and we take the photos, and then she sits down in the seat, and her head gets shaved. All of it comes off. And I'm doing a Facebook Live, and we're telling all of my followers about it and asking them to donate, and we're raising thousands of dollars, and the Johnsons are there and they're crying, and Abby's crying, and my wife's crying, and the hairdressers are crying, and it's just beautiful. And then Annie sits down in the chair and her head is also shaved. Stop it, you'll make me cry. And then, while this is all going on, my year 7 daughter Ella goes, "Dad, we're doing a really good thing today, aren't we?" And I'm like, "Yes, sweetheart, we are." And she says, "Can I do it too?" And I'm like, Totally. And she's like, yeah, but can I keep my fringe? So the hairdressers, take a seat, we can do that. And while this is all happening, Chanel, my eldest, who's in grade 11, she's like, Dad, I'm so glad we're doing this today. There's no way I'm joining in, except I'll do an undercut just so I can be part of it. Takes a seat. And Kylie comes up to me and she puts her arms around me. She says, I'm so proud of our girls. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty awesome, isn't it? And she says, I just want you to know that last night I decided that if they went ahead with it, I was going to join in, which meant that I had to do it as well. Now, I share that because, yes, I am just so grateful and in awe of my wonderful family. But I share it primarily because in this conversation about identity, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, my girls went to school every day, and the teacher, the principal got them up on the stage, and everyone clapped because everyone knew the Johnstons and everyone knew how much money they'd raised and everyone understood what had gone on. But those 2 girls particularly, well, 3 of them really, but 2 of them specifically, came home more times than I can count crying because they were called every name you can imagine. They had things thrown at them and they had their things stolen. They were really challenged because of what they'd done. And I remember sitting on the bed and saying, do you regret it? But this is where you learn who you are. You do hard things. You discover the stuff you're made of. Are you made of that wood or are you made of that metal? And they said things like, our hair grows back. The Johnsons don't get their mum back. And they said things like, we're just really, really sad that these other kids don't get it, that they're so lacking in empathy, that they don't understand. And I just thought, this is where identity is forged. You don't get the triumph without the trial. We have a saying in our home, you've got to love the hills. I'm a cyclist. I wear Lycra. That changed the mood, didn't it? Very quickly. I love to ride my bike, and quite often the guys will be like, oh, let's do a flat one today. I don't want to do any hills. And my response is always, you've got to love the hills. The hills make you strong. No point riding on the flat. You've got to go uphill. That's what builds you up. Now, I know some of us are thinking my kids go uphill all day, every day, but it's the hills that make you strong. And when you get to the top of the hill, you get that view. The view that says, I conquered, I triumphed, I did the hard thing. That's who I am. I'm the kind of person who can. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about building identity. We've got to stop letting our kids take the easy way out. This is not a tough love conversation. Sometimes it's okay to quit. Have you guys quit stuff? Do you regret it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends. I've quit way more stuff than I've stuck at, but I've stuck at the stuff that I loved and my life's richer for it. I wish I hadn't quit the piano. There's this guy called Marshall Duke. He's a professor of psychology at Emory University. And he built this thing called the Do You Know scale. Can your kids answer these questions? What he found is the more of these questions that your kids can answer, the more resilient they are. And it's not actually about the questions, it's about the conversations. Because if your kids can answer these questions, that means that they've got a relationship with you where you're talking about this stuff. And they're getting roots. And roots give you the strength to hold on when the strong winds blow. Damn, that's a good metaphor, isn't it? I get excited about that stuff. I'm more excited about the new, obviously. I like the last one. Do you know about a relative whose face froze in a grumpy position because he or she doesn't smile enough. He actually said that 15% of the children said yes to that question. Which I think is really interesting because once again, it shows that the conversation itself doesn't matter. It's just that you're having fun with the family. You're talking about stuff with the family. They're learning who they are. They're learning about your religious or your racial or your ethnic background. They're learning about your culture. They're learning about who they are. They're developing their identity. All right, 2 to go. This one is my third idea for building resilience in our children. Play, 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 play. Some of you would have heard of a guy called Jonathan Haidt. Can you put up your hand if you know who I'm talking about? Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation, Coddling of the American Mind, The Righteous Mind, Happiness Hypothesis. He's probably the most relevant and leading academic thinker on the planet today. His best-selling book recently, The Anxious Generation, makes a claim that I think is spot on, and that is that we have moved our children from a play-based childhood to a screen-based childhood. How many of you are comfortable letting your 11-year-old jump on a bike and ride down to the park to hang out with some friends? And there's about 6 of you who are saying yes, and some of you who are like, are you on drugs? Because the people in the park are.
Okay, sorry, that got loud.
No, go, keep talking.
And I was like, oh my gosh, my anxiety levels just went like,
so here's
okay,
I got to
okay,
say,
you can go.
mums are the worst for anxiety. You know what dads usually say? Go for it, you'll be right.
No, can I just say my husband didn't? Because it was like, how did you let her know without consulting me after? Anyway, other topic. And it was the hardest thing was to say, that's my problem, and just letting her do that. And I sat there like, I am not going to just follow her around, just let her do it. It was so hard. But she did it, and she felt so achieved. But then, I got the lecture from the husband after it, but that was another conversation.
I love your comment. I love the hardship that you go through when you're trying to do this. So there's a few things here. First of all, it's got to be developmentally appropriate. You know your area. If you live in, I won't mention suburbs. If you live in some parts of Sydney, wait till they're even older, or take them somewhere to another part of Sydney and let them play in a park there, right? But here's the thing, our kids need to be able, I know one mum who would not let her 17-year-old son ride 1.5 k's to the shops. He wasn't allowed to get his driver's license in case he had an accident, right? And I know that's extreme, yep.
I've got a 21-year-old at home, but when she was coming into year 7, she didn't know how to cross the road.
Coming into year 7 didn't know how to cross the road.
Because I always did it for her.
Yeah, so what I'm about to say, please consider your individual circumstances, and please also remember that kids don't get kidnapped, as a general rule. And when they do, you hear about it. It is all over the news because it's so breathtakingly uncommon. And we can still usually name the kids or remember the incidents. That's how uncommon it is. So there was the little girl over in Western Australia. There's Daniel Morecambe. I'm tapping out there. Like, it doesn't happen. Your child has more likelihood of pretty much anything happening than getting kidnapped. I have a belief that your children should do at least one thing every week that could land them in hospital if it goes wrong. Yeah, they'll break something, right? So let's think about this for a sec. When you were a kid, what was your favourite piece of play equipment? Just by hand. Trampoline. Okay, and trampolines today are different to trampolines when we were kids, right? They've got these safety nets, there's no more springs, you can't go through them and rupture yourself, like it's just all, yeah. What was your one? Same? Okay, have I got anything else? Monkey bars. Yeah, okay, and how many schools have still got monkey bars? How many schools have got trees? Seriously, you can't find trees in schools anymore, and if you do, the kids are not allowed to climb them. I asked my wife this question, what was your favourite piece of play equipment when you were a kid? The tree. Yep. Okay, there was another hand over here, yep. Rollerblades. I'm not going to let my kids rollerblade, they might hurt themselves, yep. Tracking kids? What's my opinion on tracking kids? If they know you're doing it and they're cool with it, then fine. Like my whole family, we track each other all the time. I can see where my family is at any point in time, but that's usually just so that I don't have to ring them and say, where are you? Because I want the 3 ingredients that I'm waiting for dinner so I can finish dinner, right? Do you know what I mean? So, or if my daughter tells me that she's driving home from wherever and I'm going to sleep, I can check and say, oh yeah, she's on the road, she's on the way. So I'm not big on it unless you've talked to the kids about it. Your daughter stalks you? Yeah, my kids stalk me more than I stalk them, for sure. Yeah. So here's the thing. Trees, trampolines, monkey bars. That was play for us, right? You know what it is for our kids? Laying on the carpet, playing Minecraft, Fortnite, or Roblox. Let me make this really clear. Your children are at greater risk on Roblox than they are at the park down the road. Roblox is, and I said this on national television, a pedophile hellscape. I'm so sorry, if you've got kids watching right now at home, this is a bit where you send them out of the room for like 30 seconds. I'll give you another 5 seconds to get them out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can get onto Roblox and you can find... So Roblox is a game that has about, 4 million games inside or something like that. I don't know how many games are there, but there's millions of games inside it. And your kids, they'll find a game inside Roblox and that's what they play. And they go from this game to that game to that game. And they run into strangers all the time and they communicate with strangers all the time. You cannot, and I know this because I've read the report where people tried to do it. These were people acting in good faith, not in bad faith. You cannot sign up with a username Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone knows who that is? One of the world's most notorious pedophiles, apparently. And you know why you can't? Or Jeffrey Epstein lover, or Jeffrey Epstein 69. You cannot sign up to anything Jeffrey Epstein related. Why? Because their names are already taken. You can go into games where you will be asked to perform oral sex or have anal sex with somebody. Now, it's all done virtually. You're not actually doing it, but they're the behaviours that are happening. This is all grooming behaviour, where there's sexual relationships with teachers. Think of the most... No, don't think of them. Whatever the most perverted things are that you could think of if you were going to think about them, it's worse. And your kids just stumble into these rooms and they talk to people with all of these usernames that are just appalling, and they are regularly. There are incalculable child molestation and child abuse cases that have been taken through the courts that all began on Roblox. My daughter asks me every day, my youngest daughter is 11, she asks me literally every day, can I please have Roblox? And every day, well actually she stopped lately because I've started to become a little bit more clear and explicit as to why. I'm not telling her what I've just told you. You can bring them back in now, by the way, it's safe. I don't tell her exactly what I just told you, but I've told her that there are bad people on there who want to do these things and that she won't always have a say. Like sometimes they'll just find her even if she tries not to be found. And the answer is just no. And they're not... There's so many kids. I spoke to a journalist just recently for the book that I'm writing about raising boys. And her daughter, her 13-year-old daughter was approached online and asked for nudes in like a 5-minute chat. And when she said no, was just hit with all of this horrendous misogynistic just filth. And the mum got online and found him because he didn't cover his tracks well at all. And it was just another 13-year-old boy who looked like the little boy next door who'd just be your best friend. So, I mean, the stuff that I'm writing about in my book about boys just is toe-curling. It's astonishing. And so people keep... Yeah, that's right. It's a self-reinforcing cycle, yeah. And so people keep on saying, oh, no, I don't want the kids outside riding in the cul-de-sac, riding in the street, or going down to the shops. Why? Because they might have bad influences around them. For crying out loud, what are they doing online? What are they being exposed to online? It's horrendous. Anyway, going back to the trampolines and the monkey bars and the things, we used to call that play. Today, though, because it's 2025, we've got a special word for it. It's not just play, it's what psychologists call risky play. And risky is true. Okay, we don't just want our kids to play anymore. We need them. In fact, psychological associations around the world are now saying we need to. Oh my goodness, we need to wrap this up. We need to have our children doing risky play. That involves heights, so they could fall and slap it. That involves speed, so they could fall and slap it. That involves tools, which means hammers and nails and electric screwdrivers and saws. And if you're not that kind of a family, it means that you give them the knife and let them cut the orange. Oh, yeah, okay. Now let me just go one step further with the orange cutting. Don't give them a blunt knife. That's worse. Blunt knives are more dangerous than sharp knives because you've got to push harder and you're more likely to slip, and then you're much more likely to gouge yourself with a knife. Nice sharp knife, straight through, much safer. How ironic. I love this. What else have we got? Independence. Independence, according to the Psychological Society of Canada, independence means that they have the possibility of getting A, lost, or B, abducted. Now, I know that that is horrendously scary to hear. But remember, we've got to be developmentally appropriate. So I let my 11-year-old walk the dog around our neighbourhood, and my heart goes with her, but I still let her. But it terrifies me because she's a little 11-year-old girl walking around the street with a puppy dog, and I am terrified. But I know this is a me thing. I know that I live in a great neighbourhood. I know that there's heaps of people around, and she's fine. But it terrifies me, but it's good for her. Would I let her do it if she was 8 or 9? No. If we were in Japan, I'd let her do it when she was 4, because that's what they do in Japan, but we're in Australia. Yeah? And the last one, impact. Meaning they could slap it. Right? Like just... I want to share one quick story on this, and then we're going to close up with my fourth and final one. Our time is up. A couple of Christmases ago, my parents live on the Central Coast, and they've got a boat. And a couple of Christmases ago, Dad put the donut behind the boat, and he said, "Let's take the kids out on the boat. It's going to be exciting." So my big girls, they're just having so much fun. And then Emily, who at the time was only 8 or 9. I convinced her to have a go, but she really, really, really did not want to have a go because she was terrified. And there's also a jellyfish infestation. And there were millions of jellyfish the size of your head. And I mean millions. I'm not exaggerating. When I say millions, I mean millions of jellyfish everywhere. We're speeding through the water. It's like, jellyfish, jellyfish. They're everywhere. The kids are like, "No, let me fall off." I'm like, "They'll only sting for a minute. It'll be fine." Anyway, I finally convinced Emily to get on the donut, but on one condition. My dad had to go slowly and she wasn't allowed to fall off. So when I said that to Dad, you know what he did? No, I wouldn't let him. I said, "Dad, this is not an opportunity to teach her a lesson, because if you do, what's the likelihood that she'll get back on?" Remember, developmentally appropriate. Yeah, you don't want to break a trust. It's got to be developmentally appropriate, risk. And right now, her being out in the middle of the open water as an 8-year-old on her own, that is the very edge of her willingness to risk. And he's like, "Oh, fair dinkum." Boom, 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 boom. So we're just putting along. And I'm watching because that's my job. I'm at the back of the boat watching because you've got to have a spotter. And Dad looks at me and he goes, "Fair, like really?" I'm like, "Dad, just trust me." So how long do you reckon we went? About 15 seconds. And then Emily says, "Faster, faster." And Dad's like, "Oh." I'm like, no. She doesn't fall off. He's like, "All right, but we're going to..." And he really gave it some. But he just made sure that the corners were gentle and she didn't hit the wake. And she got a couple of good bumps, but she always stayed on. And after 5 minutes of that, and she got back into the boat, what do you reckon was on her face? She felt so successful. She felt like she'd done it. She felt like she'd climbed to the top of the hill. Next time she gets on the boat, on the donut, how's she feeling? "I'm ready to push it a bit more now. I'm ready." Developmentally appropriate risk is good. Please note the difference between risk and danger. Risk is when you can assess what's going on and make a decision about it. Danger is when you are oblivious. A 3-year-old playing soccer next to the road, danger. An 8-year-old on the donut behind the boat, risk. Okay, so we've got 3 things: belonging, Connection, fill that bucket. Identity, let the kids have challenges around their values and be there to have the conversations about it. Risky play. The last one, problem solving. Resilient people solve problems. Resilient people adapt. Resilient people find ways to cope. Resilient people figure out a way through. Resilient people see options. If you are not resilient and everything starts to go wrong, you hide under the blanket and you say everything's going wrong. I can't. But if you're resilient, well, you might still hide under the blanket and say everything's going wrong, but then you say, so what do I need to do now? And our job fundamentally with our children is to help them to get to that point. Which brings us back to a couple of the questions that came up over here. They're not resilient when I'm around. Why? Because I keep on solving their problems for them. So this is the strategy. Using a metaphor. When I was in school, I went to Central Coast Grammar School. My parents paid a fortune for me to fail school. But when I was in school, we didn't have a nice hall like this. We didn't have a hall at all. We used to do our PE outside, and when we were doing the balance beam one time, you know how you've got to walk across the balance beam? I'm up here so I'm up nice and high, because if you fall, you're going to get a hurty knee. You could even, I don't know, break something if you're unlucky. Oh, I forgot to tell you my favourite story. The whole go to hospital once a week, potentially. My 15-year-old daughter loves to ride horses. We can't afford horses, but my 15-year-old daughter loves to ride horses. And so at Glenworth Valley on the Central Coast, when we come down for family time, she just volunteers. She gets a horse ride every day that she volunteers and mucks horses and saddles horses and poo and all that sort of stuff, and she gets a free ride. $150 a ride, but she gets it for free because and I don't have to worry about it because she's working hard and sweating and she's loving it. So she was at Glenworth Valley one day. She gets off the horse, opens the gate, and as she goes to get back on the horse, it goes. And she falls, and instead of rolling away from the horse, she rolls under the horse, and it runs across her face. And it breaks her eye socket in 2 places. So, does that mean she should never ride a horse again? Does that mean that we should ban children from horses? No. She literally had 12 weeks off and then she got back on the horse. Why? Because that's the risk that you take when you do risky things. But how good is it when you live a life outside and when you ride horses or when you go surfing or skateboarding or when you do this stuff? Your life is full. Anyway, back to the... In life, our kids are walking across this balance beam. And what happens is every now and again they start to tip, 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 and then they fall. The old school approach is when they fall, you look at them and say, toughen up, princess. Get back up. But as we've already discussed, that doesn't tend to build resilience in kids. The alternative that we see a lot, especially today, is that our kids start to go, oh, and we jump up on the balance beam and we scoop them up into our arms and we say, don't worry, I'll carry you. Yeah? But you can't carry your kids through life. When I was at grammar school, as somebody was walking along the beam, we had to walk like this beside them in case they fell. Now, realistically, if you fall on me, am I going to catch you? I mean, you saw Steve trying to pull me up. Oh, you're going to crush me, right? But here's the thing. If you've ever been in the gym and you've been trying to push that bench press up and it's too heavy, someone spots you, they don't lift it for you. You get 2 fingers and go, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. They take like 1 kilo of weight. They just, I'm here with you. You've got this. Push, push, push. You've got this, right? And they spot you. And they give you the support that you need to get through it. And that is what our kids need. That's how we help them be resilient. Our job is to support, not solve. So when our kids can't tidy the bedroom because it's too big of a mess, we say, well, it is a big mess. I can see why you're having a meltdown over it. What about if I help you? And the kid's like, really? Yeah, I'll help you. And so you go and sit on the bed and you say, looking around the room, if you can just pick up the first 5 things that look easiest for you, I think that's a good place to start. What about you? And they're like, yeah, I can do 5 things. All right, let's do it. And you watch them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How does the bedroom look now? It is still pretty messy, but it does look better already. Have you got another 5 things that you can see? Oh, why don't you do those 5 now? And sometimes that's enough. They've done 10 things, and you say, you know what, let's leave it there for now. We'll do another 10 things in a couple of hours or tomorrow. And what you've just shown them is that they have efficacy. They have agency. They have capacity. They can be competent. You haven't lifted a finger, but you've been there with them. And that support makes them capable. That support makes them resilient. Next time you can say, hey, I'm going to be in your room to help you in a minute, but can you just do the first 10 things on your own? And then I'll come in. I'll often say to my kids, there are going to be some things in your room that you simply don't know how to do. And so I'll help you with those things and you do the other things. My daughter will say, but I can't make the bed like Mum. And I say, no, Mum is so pro. But you do the best that you can, and then I'll make up the difference with you. You show me what you can do, and then I'll teach you the next bit. And what we're doing bit by bit is we're spotting them. And when they start to lean, our job is not to let them fall, and it's not to carry them. It's say, this looks tough. Why don't you just lean on my arm for a sec? All right, get your bearings. What do you think's the best thing to do? Okay, you're going to take the next step. You ready? Here we go. I'm letting go. You take that step. Now go for it. I'm right here. You did it. Okay, what's the next step? Okay, you've got it. Guess what? You're competent. You're capable. You're resilient. You're doing it. And I'm right here beside you, just like my dad was when I started my business. I don't know if I would have started the business if he'd said, you're on your own. I had a wife and 5 kids at the time and a mortgage. And if he'd just said, no, mate, you figure it out. I'm just not sure if I would have done it. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But the fact that he said, I've got you, meant that I could just do it. And it felt good. That's how we build resilient kids. We need to wrap up. Time's gone. You need to go home because your kids are going to be awake. I'm going to share one last metaphor with you, but before I do, over here on the table I have 4 of my books left. I've kind of sold out of everything else, but I've got 4 over there that I think will make your kids more resilient, make your family happier. I'm going to take 20 seconds and tell you what they are. This little blue one here is called What Your Child Needs From You. Sometimes when things feel like they're exploding, you just want to go back to basics. I think it's the best thing you can do. And for those of you who are online, they're available at happyfamilies.com.au. This is the Back to Basics book. You can read it in 2 hours. It's short, but it helps you to reset when things just feel out of control and you want to recalibrate. I've got friends who are university professors and psychiatrists who swear by this book because sometimes simplicity is what we need. This book here, the green one, 10 Things Every Parent Needs to Know, is where you'll get all the answers based on what we've talked about tonight. It's all about resilience, it's about understanding your child, it's about the discipline stuff. It's about getting on the same page as your partner, sibling rivalry, just all the challenges that you deal with, that's all in there. That's like my parenting Bible. This one here, Misconnection, is for every parent raising a teenage girl. I just don't know a better book on the market about teenage girls. And I know that's my book and I'm biased, but it's actually really, really damn good. Okay. I get more emails. The standard email from someone who reads this book says this: Dear Justin, thank you for saving my family. If you're raising a teenage girl, you'll know why that matters. Because teenage girls, anyway. And then the last one here is called Relationship Rules. There's a couple of different ways that I describe this book. It's the book for people who don't want to read. Can you see how much writing is on that page? So usually this is the dad book. Because there's like 50 words on a page. You can read it in 30 seconds. But the other way that I describe it is this is the break glass in case of emergency book. Because when you are about to ground your son or daughter until infinity, or when you're about to just drop your shoulder into their sternum and just push until they hit the wall, you pick this up and you're like, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, rule number 68, don't perform heart surgery with sledgehammers. Okay, I need to be better than I was about to be. Or rule number 60, drop the agenda. Look at that, hey? It's in the pocket. Pockets. So, they're over there. I prefer cash, I'm not going to lie, but I've got a credit card machine because no one's got cash anymore. And they are available online as well. And they're also available as audiobooks and ebooks. But they will help your family be happier. All right. What's that? Kindle? Yep. Not all of them, but most of them. We need to wrap up with one last thing. So I mentioned before Nassim Taleb, Anti-Fragile, the book. He doesn't use parenting, but when I read page 1 of his book, I decided then and there that every single time I shared this presentation, I would finish with what he says on page 1 of the book, and then just bring it into the parenting domain. He says this: if you take a flame and put it on top of a candle, one little breath of wind, and the candle goes out. But if you take that same flame and you put it on the floor of a forest where there are obstacles, that same little breath of wind ignites a firestorm. I read that and I thought, oh, that is so good for parents. Why? Because your child is that flame, and you've got the option of putting them on a candle and protecting them. But my preference, especially after you've been here tonight, is that you'll put your children on the floor of the forest and wish for the wind. Thanks, everyone. We're done. Thank you. Sharon.
Thanks, Justin. As always, a pleasure. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time we've had Justin for PRC, and never gets old. Love listening to him. Thank you everyone so much for coming tonight, and for everyone online, thank you. As we said before, this is our first time going live online. So we've had a few viewers online, so really appreciate it. But as Steve said before, this is great having people here, because this is what builds community. And I always believe it takes a village to raise a child. So, you know, this is great, creating a village to help our children. So thank you all for coming. We will have our Term 4 meeting, which will be advertised soon. We're looking at maybe cyber safety. So keep a lookout for that. Automatic alarm going on. The parking officer found you. But thank you, everyone. Please drive home safely, and we hope to see you at our next meeting. And please bring a friend. Take care.